Hello, my name is Allie Duzett, and this is a session on boundaries. We have 3 steps to complete as part of this session. Step 1 is to release resistance to shifting boundaries. Step 2 is releasing the trauma that caused poor boundaries to be formed in the first place. And step 3 is creating new boundaries. As a reminder, boundaries are the emotional lines that we kind of draw around ourselves that help us to remember that we are only responsible for ourselves and we are not responsible for others. And evidence of bad boundaries or inappropriate boundaries are things like always rescuing people, feeling like you have to save everybody, not being able to say no or stand up for yourself. And a lot of times our bodies reflect our boundaries. And when we have boundaries that are all over the place, our bodies are all over the place. And so getting our boundaries into a healthy place is going to help our bodies also get into a healthy place as we reduce stress on ourselves so that we produce less cortisol, so that we stop accumulating fat. And so it ends up being this very good thing where we lose the emotional stress and the physical stress on our bodies. Okay. Step 1 was just one image. We're releasing resistance to shifting boundaries. So the first resistance, this image, there's panic, horror, overwhelm, guilt, shame, panic, panic, panic. Horror to the idea of changing these things. And it says, I contracted to have my boundaries this way. And so go ahead and tap, tap, tap on your eyebrows and take your deep breaths to release those contracts, release those decisions. And those attending emotions, releasing those at the root and putting in, I formally renounce the decision to have these inappropriate boundaries. I formally renounce the contracts I've made to have these inappropriate boundaries, releasing those 100% and breathing them out. There is rejection and horror at shifting boundaries. And it says, this is who I am. Who I am has these boundaries. There's a fear of having to experience a new identity with appropriate boundaries that says it's not fair. And there's crying and sadness, sorrow, rejection, and upset. So go ahead and tap, tap, tap and do your deep breaths. Okay, if you need more time here, please pause the video now or else we will move on. Step 2 is releasing the trauma that caused those boundaries to be formed in the first place. These are traumas that led to an unhealthy and untrue understanding of agency and how it works and who is responsible for who. And so we're going to get to the heart of that and clear it. The first image was a zoo with the cages showing up and then disappearing randomly. They are there and then they melt away and then they're there in a different spot and the animals are going crazy and that's just not how it's supposed to be. And they're all going wild and there's cages popping up and getting put down all over the place. Very overwhelming, very confusing, very panicky, very traumatic. The animals are like all over each other and like freaking out as they would be. But at the same time, there's this sense of familiarity. Like, isn't this how the zoo works? The zoo works by being very random and everything is on top of each other and there's no clear boundaries, right? Isn't that how it goes? And there's, when we bring up the idea of chasing down the animals and getting their cages properly functional and getting them into their cages, there's this feeling of like, yeah, I don't know if I can do that. So go ahead and start tapping and breathing. You can close your eyes and imagine a team with you. You're tracking down each animal and putting it in its proper place. Making the zoo stable. We're stabilizing the zoo. We're making it so that these boundaries no longer are random, but they are very orderly. They are all for a reason, just like in a zoo where the animals of a certain type are all together because that is how it makes sense. And they're all kept apart from each other as it makes sense. All of these boundaries are being put up, and they're stabilizing down all the way to the center of the earth, feeling very secure, very stable, and very safe. And so just in your mind, keep tracking down random animals until it feels like your zoo has everything put away. So just go ahead and do that while you tap and breathe. Put everything in that zoo in a cage. Or shall I say an enclosure? I think that's the zoo term. So do that. And breathe in how it feels to have this zoo orderly. And having those animals in a home that is just for them, where it's orderly and calm, and they feel safe, and they don't have to worry about predators, and you don't have to worry about what kind of weird stuff is going to happen because everything is everywhere. And it feels like this breath of relief, so calming, so wonderful. Deep breaths. And if you'd like to stay here and keep putting those animals away, pause now, or else we'll move on. Image 2.2 is a butter on bread. And at first I just felt like this big confusion, and then I saw the bread on the ground and the butter is on the floor, and there's this smear on the floor, and there was this confusion, and it was this confusion about whose fault is it anyway? And should the bread have even been buttered in the first place? Who threw that bread on the floor? What even happened? Who should be punished because somebody must be punished? Who should be blamed? And it was like I heard, like, here am I, blame me. And this volunteering to take responsibility for it, even though we were not the ones that threw the toast on the floor, it just fell on the floor. It was just a thing that happened. So why are we blaming ourselves for that? And it's a representation of taking responsibility for things that are not our fault, holding ourselves accountable for mistakes and for accidents and for other people's stuff. Start yawning that out, breathing that out, tapping that out. Releasing that shame, guilt, panic, sorrow, that idea that somebody has to be blamed, so why not me? I should be blamed. Why not? I agreed to it. There's a sorrow that just says, this is always my fault. I always take responsibility for this. A decision to always accept the blame no matter what the situation is, and this big feeling of self-punishment. So go ahead and tap, 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 and breathe, 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 and we are releasing this 100%. Releasing that decision, formally renouncing, you can think in your mind, I formally renounce the decision to accept blame regardless of the situation. Like from now on, I am only willing to accept the blame for something that I did. And if I did not do it, or if it was an accident and I did not mean to do it, like I will view that in the appropriate lens. I formally decide to only take responsibility for the things that are my actual fault. I know how to tell the difference between what is my fault and what isn't my fault. I know how to not take responsibility for other people's actions, even if they blame me for their actions. Releasing all of these negative emotions tied to that. Breathing in these new boundaries. And there's still a residual sorrow that says, I don't know how to live without this. So releasing that with some tapping and deep breaths. Picking up that bread, wiping the butter off the floor, putting it back on a plate and saying, yep, it fell on the floor. Too bad. And it was nobody's fault, and that's okay. And breathing that in. Sometimes it's nobody's fault, and that's okay. Breathing that in. I know how to live without needing somebody to be blamed. I know how to live without it needing to be somebody's fault. Okay, number 3 was festering resentment, bubbling like a baking soda and vinegar volcano. Resenting the world for always getting into trouble and needing you to fix everything. You need to save everyone. You need to do all the things, and it is not fair. Anger, rage, upset. Why me? This is not fair. Hatred, sorrow, despair, horror, guilt, shame, sadness, crying, hopelessness, more despair. This will never change. I will never get a break. I will save people from making dumb choices forever. And feeling really depressed about that. Big depressiveness, big frustrations about this, and start tapping and yawning. Releasing these 100%. Washing that out and healing up where it was with pure white perfect light. Okay, you can pause here if you need to continue venting that resentment. Otherwise, putting in, I know how to live without this resentment. I know how to live without feeling like I need to take care of everybody. I know that I'm not responsible for everybody's problems and I don't have to save them. And I feel at peace with that. I know how to feel peace with myself and how to feel like I'm still a good person, even if I'm not willing to inappropriately run to the rescue of other people. Number 4 was, it was my job. That's what I heard. And I saw a teacher seeing a kid take a test and this kid is failing the test. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I'm the teacher. Oh my gosh. And they're failing. Oh my gosh. I guess that makes me the worst teacher ever. Oh my gosh. And there's panic and the heart stopping and just this feeling of no, they can't fail. I did everything that I should have done as a teacher. I did everything that I should have done as a teacher. So why are they failing? Why are they failing? I can't face it. I don't want to see it. There's no courage to see the reality of what's happening here. And there's just this internal monologue of, I thought I was doing okay, but I guess I'm a terrible person because of this person's choices and this person's failure. And it really gives the student power over the teacher's heart and emotions. And the teacher is refusing to acknowledge the student's role and responsibilities in their own failure. The teacher is not responsible if the student fails. The student always has options to study harder, to make different choices, to find a different teacher if that's how it has to be, but the student has choices too. And for the teacher to take responsibility for the student's behavior is a misunderstanding of agency. But there's this big feeling of shame and this deep despair that just says, I should have done better. I should have done more. I should have done better. I should have done more. So go ahead and tap, 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 tap. And we're releasing that now with big, deep breaths. We're allowing that student to fail and looking down, just looking at that student as the teacher and realizing I did my best. Or even if I didn't do my best, like I did what I could. And even if I didn't even do what I could, I did what I did. But they did too. I did what I did and they did too. And it's okay to let that be. I don't have to feel guilty about their outcome. They had a choice too. We all have a choice too. And just breathe that in, release that unforgiveness of self. See if you can see a black tornado of unforgiveness towards yourself as this teacher holding yourself responsible for other people's progress. And just take a deep breath in and exhale out. And as you do, imagine that black tornado just dissolving into 1,000 pieces and it's gone. And you feel so much lighter and you have self-forgiveness and you know, I did what I did and they did what they did. And here we are and it's okay. And everything happens in the perfect divine timing. And we all have the experiences that we need exactly when we need them. And it's okay to trust that if my student fails, it's okay. It's okay. If that happens, then obviously it was important as a part of their life mission. That I'm not responsible for that. And it's not even necessarily a bad thing. And assigning that kind of judgment is really beyond the scope of my job as a teacher. My job as a teacher is to be a good example and to share information, and their job as a student is to apply that information and to learn it. And it's not my job to judge their journey. It's just not. And so breathing that in, setting yourself free from the job of judge, releasing that. Who am I to say they're failing anyway? What if they're not failing? What if it just looks like failing, but they're actually doing fine and we just don't realize because it's just not our job. We're not the one grading the test. Breathe it in. This is not in the presentation, but I'm suddenly seeing chains. And so just go ahead and choose to take off the chains. Release those chains. And those are the chains of feeling responsible for other people's progress. And it's okay to just take them off. You have the key in your own hands. Look down and you'll see those manacles. You have the key in your own hand. And all you have to do is unlock it, chink, and then it's just off. And you can step out of that and just realize, wow, I don't have to be weighed down by feeling responsible for other people's decisions. It's not my job to make sure that other people succeed, even if they're my kid, even if they're my best friend, even if it's my spouse. I'm responsible for me. And if they fail, that's their business. And the only way that they will ever learn how to take care of themselves is if sometimes they're allowed to fail. And who am I to say that they're failing? Because is it a failure if it helps them understand themselves better? Is it a failure if it assists them on their life journey and helps them to become better people? That judging that is it's just not my job. I don't have to judge if what I feel like is their failure is actually a failure. These are all just, we do what we do, and that's what happens. And it's okay to accept that and to allow them to experience what we feel like is failure, but what may actually be a beautiful and important learning experience. Breathe it all in. You can pause here, or we will move on. 2.5, angels with half wings. It was like their wings were cut off right underneath the shoulder blades. The wings don't work, they're too short. The angels look really confused. There's confusion, sorrow, no courage, despair, wondering what's going on. They're feeling snipped by other people's choices. It's like, somebody else cut off my wings, that jerk, and now I can't fly and it's their fault. Look at them. It's like, to the extent that I'm fallen, it is somebody else's fault. Other people held me back. I blame them for my failures. Also, if other people have destroyed my life, I must be responsible for destroying other people's lives. I must be to blame for other people's failures. So there's this cycle of blaming others and then blaming the self. If other people have ruined my life, then obviously I have the capacity to ruin other people's lives. So I guess my whole life needs to be blaming them and blaming myself. And now I'm in this cycle of blame forever. And there's a fear, knowing that this cycle is not appropriate, feeling very afraid of it because of how it affects you. If the fear that this cycle goes on forever, fear of having been hurt by others and fear of hurting others, and this decision to constantly live in fear of damaging others, this idea that if I'm afraid all the time of hurting others, then my fear will keep me from doing it. Or like if I'm afraid all the time, then when I accidentally hurt others, then at least I can say with absolute honesty that I was afraid of that the whole time. And then that's kind of like, it's not as bad, right? So there's this decision to live constantly in fear of damaging others and thinking proactively about how they will respond to you. And this is the kind of mentality where like you stay awake in bed at night, wondering what other people have thought about your conversations and maybe I should have said this, or like, what if they thought this when I said that, and blah, blah, blah. And all of these kinds of things. This is all a function of this blame cycle and inappropriate boundaries and us taking personal responsibility for other people's responses to us. And that is just not appropriate. Our responsibility is to do what is right. It is to do what is right regardless of anybody's responses to us. And the only thing that we need to be worried about at night is, did I do the things that were right today? Like, was I, if you're religious, was I in tune with the Holy Spirit today? Was I in tune with my own spirit today? If you are or you aren't religious, did I live up to my own highest standards for myself today? Those are the questions that are important. What did this person think of me? What if I should have said that to them? I wonder if they thought this when I said that. Those are questions that show that there are boundaries that need to be healed. This is a very nerve-wracking way to live, and it's very emotionally heavy, and it weighs on us emotionally. So there's this irritation, and it's like, why do I have to keep paying for my problems when other people cut my wings? Why? And just, it's an irritation that comes from this blaming. So imagine, close your eyes and imagine the reality, which is that as soon as the angel decides that they can get over blaming people and blaming themselves, their wings just heal up, just like that. Bam, their wings are back. Whoa. And so just imagine in your head watching like 3 or 4 other angels with these short wings, and then they just realize, wow, I'm done. Like, I'm sick of this blame cycle. The end. Like, it's not like no one else cut my wings, you know, like I can grow them back right now. No one else is in charge of my wings. I am in charge of my wings, and I choose for them to come back now. And just watch a few angels do that, and just imagine them having their wings back all the way. And they're perfect. They're even more beautiful than before. And when you've seen a couple of other people do it, go ahead and imagine your own wings on your back and how they're cut off at the stump, and just take a deep breath. And on the exhale, all of a sudden your wings are back, and just feel it. Just breathe it in and stretch them out. Stretch, and feel how it feels to have these beautiful, perfect wings on your back. And know that they can carry you above that cycle of blame. You don't have to live in that cycle anymore. You can transcend it into a new place that says, I understand the law of agency, and I'm not responsible for your problems, and you're not responsible for my problems. And I choose to live like this from now on. And breathing that in. I choose to live above that cycle. Releasing that cycle and placing us in a new space above it, a space of transcendence, a space of appropriate understandings of agency. Number 6 was a train station with trains going everywhere, and they're like everywhere. It's crazy town. It's like if my 2-year-old built the train station, and there's like random tracks on everywhere, and there's like trains everywhere, and it doesn't even make any sense. And these are all trains of thought, and every single one feels responsible for everything. And there's just all of these competing things in the mind that want your attention. And it's like, this train has to go here. This train has to go there. This train goes on this tiny track. This train goes on this big track. All these trains, we have to micromanage all these trains. We can't say no. We've got to follow these crazy railroad tracks wherever people ask us to. We're going to go above and beyond. We're going to do all the activities. We're going to help people, even if they're not helping themselves. Even though, why? And up comes all this frustration and anger at the self and anger at them and rejection of others as we zoom out and we realize, like, wow, this whole time I thought those trains were the real deal. And yeah, it turns out that it was actually toy trains the whole time, and they were just scattered around on the floor by my 2-year-old. And here I was taking them really seriously, and now I realize that I don't have to do that. When I have healthy boundaries, I do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, and I can say no, and I can say this is not going to fit in with my life. Sorry. And it's okay, and I don't have to feel bad because that's okay. So imagine you stop the trains, and you're going to pick up those trains and put them away, and you can imagine a helper or an angel or something coming in, and they're creating a new train track with you. And it is so simple. It is just one circle. Just one circle. This circle, that's all that it is. And it is your circle. That is all the stuff that you need to worry about, which is just you. Did I do the right thing today? That is what you need to worry about. And breathing that in. You don't need to worry about, did somebody else do the right thing today? No, we need to worry about, did I do the right thing today? And we are breathing that in. Breathing that in. And remembering that obviously, like, we still have a calling to help others and serve others, but also we don't have to take responsibility for them. We're not responsible for others. We're responsible for ourselves. We do the right thing when it's the right thing, because it is the right thing, and only when it's appropriate. We don't run faster than we can walk, and we are always listening to our own spirits about what is appropriate for us, because we are responsible for us and our well-being, and we are not responsible for other people's choices. We are responsible. We know what we are responsible for and what we are not responsible for. Okay, 2.7 was a person on their knees in prayer, and they're praying and they're very upset because they've been praying the same thing over and over and really, really wanting answers. They want to be saved. They want all their problems to go away. They want to stop feeling the way that they feel. And they totally mean it. Like, they are so sincere, but they feel like it's not being heard because that prayer cannot be answered. The prayer that they're praying cannot be answered because they are not willing to accept the full truth of how the universe works. They want these changes to happen while continuing to deny the role of agency in life. And I heard the word pre-earth here, and that this is a pre-earth situation or emotional echo, if you might say. And so going back to that, go tap, 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 tap now. There's a bunch of horror at the truth of agency and the law of agency and the concept of agency. And it's horrifying to understand that we really are only responsible for ourselves. And it's a traumatic idea and a repulsive idea because it means that we really have no control over other people, no control over them. And we have no power over them. We are helpless and powerless, can't control anything or anyone because everyone else has their own agency too. And it means that we have no one to blame. We have no control over anybody else. We can't make it so that the people we love are safe or the people we hate are gone. And we can't make it so that if we do something wrong, we can blame somebody else. The idea of complete and total self-responsibility that does not extend to other people and that really prevents things like control and blame. That's just very scary. It's very scary because we wish that we could blame somebody else, and we wish that we could keep our loved ones safe and make sure that they always did good choices. And we wish that the people that want to hurt us, that we could hurt them back or whatever. And the law of agency is that those are all really false ideas, and that, if your kid makes a choice that you really disagree with, it's not your fault. But if it's not your fault, then that means you have no control. And that's very scary. I have no control about how my loved one acts. I have no control over that. And that's very terrifying. And that's the underlying issue of this image is wanting to experience these major emotional changes without being willing to accept the inherent truth of how agency works. And agency is one of the core laws of the universe. And if we can't accept it, then we can't have healthy boundaries. And if we can't have healthy boundaries, then we cannot heal from depression. We cannot heal from anxiety. And it will be a struggle to heal from really anything, because agency is so core to how everything works. And so this is what we're facing in this time. So go ahead and tap, 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 and start breathing it out. And as you breathe in, imagine this new divine understanding of the law of agency floating into your mind. And and knocking out all the old gunk that was not accurate and not true. And just breathe in. It is very, very safe to understand the truth of how agency works. It is very, very safe to accept the truth of the laws of agency and accept how the universe works. And imagine how this understanding, so imagine this person, right? They're on their knees. They're like, why? And so you imagine this blue light coming into their head and into their heart, and it kind of is swirling around in there. It knocks out all the dark gunk of misunderstandings of agency, and it puts in this new, wise, true understanding of the law of agency. And you see how it kind of unlocks this thing in the heart, and all of a sudden there's this expansion of energy, and whew, and it just feels like a relief. And all of a sudden, from up above, you see this huge transfer of light, and it's like this pillar of light on them. And all of a sudden they're able to experience more information from the universe, because they're actually being open to the universe and how it works. As long as we're fighting how the universe works, we cannot reap the full benefits of being part of the universe. We have to be open to accepting the universe as it is before we can accept that kind of information and that kind of emotional healing. And so breathing that in. And now putting in the new boundaries. I know the Creator's definition of agency and proper boundaries. I know I am only responsible for myself and my own choices, and I am not responsible for other people's choices or other people. I know how to feel at peace with letting other people experience the consequences of their own decisions and attitudes. I know how to live without feeling guilt or feeling responsibility for other people's hardships. I know how to be at peace with myself feeling this way. I know I am actually a better person when I conform to the true principles of agency and responsibility and boundaries, and when I stop holding myself accountable for things that are not my fault. I have the Creator's divine understanding of where my boundaries should be, and I automatically live my life and experience my emotions according to those boundaries. It is easy for me to say no, to stand up for myself, to feel very safe, only being responsible for myself. Breathing that all in. And I do feel like I need to stop here for a minute and just talk. You just keep breathing, breathe in those new beliefs, and imagine them in blue light kind of wrapping around your body, and you're breathing them in, and they're just permeating you, these new boundaries. But like, how does it all fit in with parenting if I'm not responsible for other people? And the thing, we're still responsible to be good people. You know, you are still responsible to be a good person. And being a good person obviously means providing for your children, or like being a good friend, all of these different kinds of things. And if we don't live up to those obligations, there is a price to pay for that. Absolutely, there is. But what this means is that, you know, I'm responsible for making sure that my kids get healthy food and enough sleep, and that I'm taking time to snuggle them every day and tell them I love them, and to read them stories and teach them literacy and teach them these different skills that they need. But I'm not responsible if they ignore me. I'm not responsible for it if they have a tantrum. I'm not responsible for it if, you know, if I do all that hard work and they end up deciding that they don't like me anyway. That's, you know, my responsibility is to do my responsibilities and to not hold myself accountable for their feelings and their choices. Sometimes we do the right thing and it really offends people, but that doesn't mean that we should apologize for doing the right thing. And sometimes that can get really confusing when it comes to agency and boundaries, because we want to take responsibility for the hurt feelings. But it's not our fault if other people's feelings were hurt because of whatever reasons that they had. You know, the only thing that we're responsible for is, did we do the right thing? Did we say the right thing? And that's the important stuff. And so it can be a little bit complicated at times, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is living in tune and totally at peace with your own spirit, and knowing every day and every minute that I'm doing the right thing. And I'm going to say, I don't do the right thing 100% of the time every day, obviously. Like, nobody alive does. That's how it works. But that's why we have the opportunity every day and every minute to change course. And every single minute we have that opportunity to take that deep breath and say, wow, I just did something really stupid, and I'm sorry about that. And now I'm going to choose a different outcome. I'm going to choose a different way of being now. And we have that opportunity to change course every minute of the day. And so this is an invitation to really start paying attention to your own heart and to the things that you go through every day, and to really start questioning yourself as you go about your day. Did I do the right thing? And if I didn't, let's take care of it right now. Let's say sorry right now. Let's fix the situation right now before it gets out of hand. And that is how we maintain our appropriate boundaries, is by daily, in a religious context, you would call it repentance. But the word repent, really, the Greek term is metanoia, and what it really means is a change of thinking and a change of seeing, a change of being, and a change of breathing. And so I feel like in religious contexts, it can get really complicated and people overthink it. But this concept of changing who we are can happen in an instant, and we can take a look at how we are living up to the standards that we have for ourselves. And when we fall short, which we will do many times a day, every day, then we say, oh no, I just fell short. Okay, time for a change of pace. And we take a deep breath and make that change. And so it can sound like a tall order. Go watch the Releasing Overwhelm video if it overwhelms you, but it doesn't have to, and that's the point. It can be one breath at a time, and one sentence at a time, and one action at a time. And as we get ourselves in better tune with ourselves and start living with more integrity with our own hearts, we're going to see these enormous differences and enormous shifts in how we feel, how we act, and even how we look, because our bodies are going to respond to it as we release these enormous stresses and pressures we put on ourselves through inappropriate boundaries. Okay, time to ground. Go ahead and imagine yourself growing roots into the center of the earth and out for 5 miles in every direction. Feeling so calm and grounded and peaceful. Feeling your boundaries. Go ahead and imagine. Just look around in your imagination for your boundaries and see if you can see them. And if you can imagine them, I would love to hear what your boundaries look like in your imagination. Please email me. I would love to hear from you. And so that's it for today. I recommend watching this one many times, like 10 times maybe. This is important stuff, and it's really important that you take care of it. And so that is my challenge to you, and I hope that you have a great day.